We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football YouTube channel with a donation. Hit the $sign where you make a comment and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, everybody, into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. Big Ten Media Days, a salary floor in college football, a salary cap, yes, but are some conferences looking at implementing a salary floor? And Florida State did receive the message. I've got good news for the Florida State Seminoles. Oh my goodness. Good news. Greg, I didn't know you could give good news to Florida State. When we've got good news, it means something. Because I don't just sit here and raise my pom-poms in the air and I don't pump sunshine every single day. We got a little bit of a good news, and we're not going to get into details about it. But Florida State understands. Florida State got the message. Florida State knows where it stands. And Florida State is working towards completing what they need to do to get in to the Power 2. Florida State gets it. Florida State gets it. And I believe the PATC community had been told this. There's still some people out there that are saying, nah, Greg, come on. Come on, Greg. Well, we've been telling you the truth. Florida State gets it. And we're going to be talking about that later in the monologue. So that is good news for Florida State. Their leadership, they understand. Now, of course, they didn't get, they're not listening to me. They're not watching this program. But everything we have said, they're not out of the conference yet. But someday they're going to get out of the ACC. Check. The Florida State Seminoles and Clemson do not have a spot in the Big Ten and the SEC right now. There is no deal made. There is no handshake. There is no wink, no nod, no first party talks. Check. Florida State is an emerging research university. And they've been doing it for over a decade. Growing and growing and growing and growing and knocking on the door of AAU. And now they've made some more. They're about to make some more commitments to research. It all matters. All of it matters. We're talking about here, peek around the corner. If you're going to get into the Big Ten, you got to have to come in with somebody that gives a blend to scratch all the interest of the Big Ten presidents and the media partners. Florida State understands where they need to get to. Remember, we talked about the third-party talks. There hasn't been first-party talks. Florida State is going to get those first-party talks whenever they can leave the ACC. But Florida State understands. And I think more and more people are understanding what we at Peek Around the Corner have been talking about. It's been hard to listen to me. I get it. It's been a struggle for a lot of fans. I get it. But one of us here in the college football YouTube community has been telling you the truth. The good news is Florida State's leadership, they know what they need to do. They're not there yet. They're not the number one targets of the SEC, the Big Ten, when they get out of the ACC. But they know what they need to do, and they're getting the state involved. They're getting all the people that they need to be involved to get to a certain level where they need to get to. And I'm going to talk about why that is so important. You need the votes of the Big Ten presidents. You need especially a particular vote in the Big Ten. We're going to talk about it. Back in the back end of the monologue. Big Ten Media Days. Holy smokes. 18 universities. 18 universities. 18 teams. I see it up on the board. I saw it up on the banner and I'm like, holy smokes. That's not the Big Ten that I grew up with. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was 10 teams in the Big Ten. The worst that the Golden Gophers could finish was 10th place. Not anymore. Now a 10th place finish is probably going to get celebrated here in Minnesota. Anyways, 10 teams. And then Penn State came along in 90, 91, 92. We had 11 teams. And then Nebraska. And then, well, now we're up to 18. I don't know. It hit me a little different when I saw the banner this morning. It hits me a little bit different when I'm looking at the ESPN football standings and there are 18 teams listed. Is the Big Ten, are they going to remain as a one division conference in the future? That is a big question. And I don't think they know. There are reasons why they wanted to become a one division conference. It's better for their media partners. They want to play each other more often, as much as possible. The athletic directors, they want that. The university presidents want that. It's hard to have competitive balance if you divide your large conference into pods. The Big Ten couldn't even maintain competitive balance in dividing 14 schools into 7 and 7. There's a lot of reasons not to go into pods. But if this conference goes to 20 schools or more in the future, and I think they will, they're going to have to keep that in mind. And if you're going to keep that in mind, if that is going to be one of the possibilities that you go into pods, then when we're talking about future expansion, then geography comes into play once again. Ricky, thank you for the gifted membership. Holy smokes, Amazing Blue, you have been gifted a membership. Ricky and Amazing Blue, both of you are hereby knighted cloak and dagger. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you once again for your generosity to this program, giving out gift memberships. Thank you so much. Amazing Blue, if you haven't done so yet, please say thank you to Ricky. There was a new episode 43 early peak Cloak and Dagger episode dropped earlier today. So if you haven't seen it yet, people, members, go check it out. Episode 43 earlier today. Talking about the canary in the coal mine. Talking about the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. The North Dakota State Bison. What is their future? Go check that out. If you're not a member of the program, please go to the link provided in the description box. Hit the link. Hit the join button. Become a member. And then you can watch those membership-only episodes. We have put out a episode 407 and 408, I believe, here recently. Episodes for everybody that could watch. One of the episodes that I put out is the PATC rendition of ABBA, 1978. If I Change Your Mind song, go check that out. I did the best I could. Nobody in the live shows have made a comment about it, so it must have not left a very good impact. But I had a fun time doing it. It was a struggle singing an ABBA song. The fat guy from Minnesota singing an ABBA song. Yeah, it was a train wreck. It was a train wreck, but go check that out. Everybody can watch that episode, unfortunately. Ryan Willie, the Big Ten and the SEC want plausible deniability. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Ryan Willie. Well, they can't have first-party talks. We've been talking about that for over a year. All that is truthful. I happen to believe, and I think you should too, but I'm going to leave it up to all you in the PATC community. Those sources, they have no reason. They're not under any danger of litigation. When sources anonymously tell the reporter, look, the SEC, their number one target is North Carolina. Oh, the Big Ten, their top two targets are Notre Dame and North Carolina. The sources don't have to lie. The sources don't have to hide behind the bush. Have you noticed that the sources said North Carolina is the SEC's number one target? Why are they open to saying that if they're not open to them saying that Florida State is the number one target for the SEC? Because the truth of the matter is, it is North Carolina the number one target. But Florida State knows where they stand, and the doors are not shut. No way, no how on Florida State. The third-party talks, they know their valuations. They know if they have to get into it with the Big 12, they're going to be getting a lot of money from the Big 12. And they know the door is not shut on the SEC or the Big 10, working on their relationships. They're going to do that for the next year. They're going to be working on getting commitments, internal, state politics, the state of Florida, the governance of Florida. Florida State is they're marshaling all their efforts into getting to that next level of being a spectacular research university. Now, let's get to, thank you so much, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. Let's get to Scott Dockerman, The Athletic. Tony Petitti says the Big Ten is focused on 18 right now as league introduces West Coast members. In a wide-ranging 30-minute news conference on topics ranging from the House versus NCAA settlement to expansion, the Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti touted his league's strength in position in an ever-changing college sports landscape. Here are some of the takeaways. Expansion. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington officially become Big Ten members on August 2nd, raising the league's membership to 18. With Florida State and Clemson's ongoing court battles with the ACC, creating instability in another conference, expansion and realignment remain at the forefront of national discussion. Yet for the Big Ten, expansion seems to be a back burner discussion at the moment. We're focused on 18 right now, Petitti said. A lot of work had been done to integrate USC, UCLA. We started that work over immediately when we added Oregon and Washington. I think we're really comfortable where we are. We've got to get this conference right. And that's what our focus is. The Big Ten dates back to 1896. The academics remain a pivotal factor in its members considering any expansion effort. All four newcomers are members of the Association of American Universities, a prestigious research consortium that includes 17 Big Ten members. Nebraska was a former member. AAU membership, while not a direct requirement, is a significant factor for evaluating potential new members, Petitti said. Now, Jim Delaney said that. Kevin Warren said that. Tony Petitti has said that. Greg Flugar has been saying this for years. Jim Delaney said AAU first, but not only. Kevin Warren said not a requirement. And Tony Petitti said this. Look, AAU is a private organization. They do not hold the veto power over the Big Ten. Of course they don't. If you are an AAU member, there is a 99.99% chance, if you are an AAU member, that the majority, the great majority, or all the Big Ten universities voted you into the club. So if they're going to vote you into the club, and if you have a very good football program, brand, you bring value to the conference, of course, you have a better shot at getting into the Big Ten. It is not a requirement. It is a very good indication. It's a very good indication that you can get into the Big Ten. Not a requirement. Now, Tony Petitti, he said it at the beginning of this press conference. He talked about AAU first. He talked about academics. He made it real clear. I have been saying this now. I don't know how clear I could be. Florida State is an emerging research university. They are doing great. And they're going to try to get to the next level, to punch down the door, to try to be able to get into the Big Ten or have that option in the next year or two ahead. The door is not closed on Florida State, but it's just not open right now. We at Peek Around the Corner have been honest. The door is not closed. Florida State is making more commitments as we speak. Their July 22nd, yesterday Board of Trustees meeting, listen to what they said. Listen to what they said. Listen to what Peter Collins said, the chairman of the board. They know where they stand. They just got to elevate it a little bit more, work on the relationships, get up to the next level, try to get in with another brand that can help them grease the skids, and they can help grease the skids of the other school. It's all there. It's still there for Florida State. But we were truthful that it's not there yet. It isn't. It's a holistic approach that starts with academics and the fit, he said. It starts with academics and the fit. What does the fit mean? Well, I've never talked to Tony Petitti before. Okay? I've never talked to Tony Petitti, but I'm going to give you what I would consider an educated guess on what that means. It's a holistic approach that starts with academics and the fit. The fit is relationships. You got to build them up. You got to have relationships. It took Rutgers a decade of having talks with the Big Ten. The Big Ten had to make sure, can you even get over the lowest bar here. It was back and forth. It was tight. It was tight. At the very end, Rutgers needed Virginia to turn down the Big Ten, North Carolina to turn down the Big Ten. Rutgers needed Maryland to say yes. All those things happened, and because Rutgers had been working on this fit issue for over a decade, with many, many talks with the Big Ten, Rutgers got the invitation. Rutgers worked on the relationships. This is what Florida State is doing now. Peek around the corner, just got the word. Florida State they're doing the right things. You're going to hear more reports on that in the next 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. And we're going to talk about one relationship that Florida State's going to have to really, really get good with. We're going to talk about that at the end of the monologue. It's a holistic approach that starts with academics and the fit, he said. That's a really big part of the legacy and the history of the Big Ten. That's important to our leadership. Academics and the fit. Obviously, these 4 schools check those boxes very well. I think the next factor is being strong in multiple sports is important. Now, the first one was academics because you're just not going to get the votes of the Big Ten presidents. So Patini led out with that. And it is true. It's true. It just is. You got people out there saying academics doesn't matter to Tony Petitti. They have no idea what they're talking about. None. Zilch. They have no clue. They might as well be talking about rocket science. I think the next factor, the next one after academics and fit, is being strong in multiple sports, but the real additive is football. Football is critical. Are you bringing additional value to the conference on football? There's no secret that football is a large part of the revenue that's driven to support the whole ecosystem. We understand that. So when we are evaluating potential members, football sort of moves to the front of the line in terms of the athletic piece. You know, internally, the Big Ten is always having conversations around potential new members. It's what you do as a conference. It's what you do. Just like an athletic director always has conversations with his staff about a potential candidates list in football and basketball just in case they lose their coaches due to them getting poached or them having to fire their coach. This is what conference do internally. For the Big Ten, you've got to be able to jump over that academic bar to the satisfaction of the Big Ten presidents. You have to jump over that fit bar. You've got to be a fit. They have to feel comfortable with you. They have to feel good with you. They have to have good relationships with you. And then they move to the athletic part. And of course, football drives the bus. Washington advanced to the national title game last season, where it lost to fellow Big Ten member Michigan. Oregon and UCLA all qualified for bowl games and have rich football traditions. The college football playoff. After 10 seasons as a 4-team tournament, the college football playoff expands to 12 teams this fall. The 5 highest-ranked conference champions earn an automatic berth, with the top 4 champions receiving a first-round byes. The remaining 7 spots go to at-large teams, and the goal for Petitti and the Big Ten is to snag as many spots as possible. We want as many teams competing as late in the season to earn a spot in the playoff, and I think that's the goal, PATC said. What I'm excited about is the fact that we've expanded the playoff, gives more teams in the Big Ten the opportunity to compete later in the season. That's better on site, on campus, in terms of excitement. It brings more programs into the hunt, and that's what fans want. Fans want their teams to be alive as late as possible. That's all you can hope for. I think this format will allow us to do it. We'll see how it operates this year. I've been pretty outspoken about the fact that we really want that regular season to work and connect to our postseason. And to me, that means Tony Petitti wants automatic qualifiers. Not just your champion, but your second, third place team. I think that's what he's getting to here. I've been pretty outspoken about the fact that we really want that regular season to work and connect to our postseason. To get through a Big Ten regular season is not easy. Being able to earn that based on your conference play and your record, I think is really critical part of what the playoffs should be. 6 current Big Ten teams won at least 10 games last year. 6 of them. And their regular season resumes would put all of them in consideration for an at-large playoff berth. The NIL House settlement. Again, this is Scott Dockerman, The Athletic. The NCAA, its member institutions, the conferences, plaintiffs have agreed to settle what's known as the House antitrust case, which will result in more than $2.75 billion in damages paid out by the NCAA over a 10-year period. But more importantly, for schools, the settlement is set to end scholarship limits for each sport and enable athletic departments to pay up to around $22 million annually to athletes. Petitti expects the settlement to be filed this week, with Judge Claudia Wilkin in a final position to be established within the next several months. Full details on the logistics, guardrails, and NIL implications are still uncertain for the schools. In this new world, student athletes will have sort of 3 areas they can take advantage of, Petitti said, the Big Ten commissioner. They'll still retain their scholarships, the academic benefits, the connection to academics. That's vitally important. They'll be able to receive direct compensation from their institutions. And third, they'll be able to capitalize on NIL to the extent that their NIL rights have value either locally or nationally. And finally, in Scott Dockerman's article of this morning, we've got to build that model. That's going to require change and tremendous amount of collaboration. First of all, coming into a consensus within the Big Ten, but then bringing that out to our colleagues across the other conferences. The schools will make many of the financial decisions without conference involvement, Petitti added. Very important. This system is built to allow institutions to make individual decisions about what programs they want to support, how much they want to invest, what student athletes get what, how many scholarships they offer, because we're eliminating scholarship limits, he said. All of those decisions will be made institution by institution, and I think that's the right way to do it. Bam! boy, we're going to have a lot to talk about in the year ahead. Going into 2025. These athletic departments, if you think they look different from each other here in the history of college football, college athletics, they're going to look vastly different from each other going forward. What sport how much money will they invest in baseball, football? Of course, most of it will be football. How much money in the wrestling program, the women's basketball program, the men's basketball program, hockey for Minnesota? Minnesota's going to spend more money on hockey for their players than any school in the country. That they do it now, but they're going to do it even more in the future. And people are going to say, well, that's stupid. That's stupid, Minnesota. You should be spending more on football. You're probably correct. But if they did not spend more money in hockey than any other school in the country, the Minnesota donors, the people here in Minnesota, it would be trouble at the university. There would be trouble. People would be bringing their pitchforks, their skates on a pitchfork. It would be a total mess. Each athletic department is going to choose within the football program. How much exactly? 17 million? 15 million of the 22 million? 13 million? How much on the quarterback? How much on the left tackle? How much on the backup running back? How much on the right guard? How much on the kicker? How much on the punter from Australia? How much? And this is all going to be transparent, I believe. So 2020, this is going to be the most interesting college football year of our lifetime. This season, 2025, we're going to kick it up a notch. It's going to be even more interesting. So what a time to be alive if you are a college football fan. Now, we're talking about a salary cap, right? A salary cap. Direct payments from the institution, from the athletic department to the student athletes. Right now, the number that's being floated around is 22 million. It could be more as 2025 comes around. It could be more. But what about a salary floor? Will conferences be instituting a salary floor? Will there be some conferences that tell their members you have to at least spend this much, invest this much in paying your student athletes, or your membership could be in grave danger? Let's take a look at an article by Eric Prisbell, the AAC, the American Athletic Conference. Tim Pernetti, the new commissioner. He's got a lot of ideas. First of all, ACC Commissioner Tim Pernetti once again brings up the idea of a complimentary postseason tournament for the group of 5 teams. We're still waiting to hear what the downside of more meaningful postseason football. Now, Tim Pernetti does not want to eliminate the access, the top-rated G5 conference champion. He wants that team to go to the 12-team playoffs. No question about it. He's talking about the other G5 conference champions. Why not have a 4-team playoff? What is the downside of a postseason 4-team G5 champion playoff? I don't see a downside. And Mr. Panetti, the new commissioner of the ACC, is saying, look, we're still waiting to hear the downside. Also, ACC Commissioner Tim Panetti on conference naming rights, jersey patches, private capital. We will continue to explore what's possible. keep your eye on Mr. Tim Panetti. He might be the next Brett Yormark when it comes to the AAC, wheeling and dealing. Look at what's going on here. Eric Prisbell. As revenue sharing model nears, the AAC has its eyes on salary floor. As power conference schools explore whether they will have revenue to approach the salary cap of some $22 million to share with athletes as early as the fall of 2025. Let's see if I can get that a little bit higher. Establishing a salary floor, a table stakes investment to compete in the league. The American Athletic Conference has its sights set on the other end of the radically new financial model, a salary floor. I do think it's important that we set a floor so all of our institutions are investing at a minimum level. It's important just to create more competitive balance, ACC Commissioner Tim Panetti told On3 on Tuesday. Panetti, 4 months into the gig, amidst unprecedented industry disruption, met with his football coaches until 11 p.m. Monday night. He said there is a universal membership support for a salary floor. The rationale? Letting everyone invest at a baseline level and then giving schools the opportunity to go up from there signals a commitment across the conference that everyone is in it together. To be part of this conference, we expect you to invest at a minimum level, Panetti said. Understanding what coaches need to have access to with NIL and on campus to invest will give us a steer on maybe what the right floor is. But that's the conversation we're going to spend our time on. Is the salary floor more important than a salary cap? Panetti knows that that's not, okay, the revenue sharing model that will take hold from House versus NCAA settlement is considered permissive legislation, meaning schools don't have to take part. But Panetti knows that that's not the real world. To compete in the cutthroat world of player recruiting and retention, sharing some revenue will be mandatory. New businesses enterprise strategies that the league is exploring, he said, are all about enabling schools to be able to compete and share more revenue. Panetti said he does not know yet how many, if any, AAC schools will even come close to sharing as much as $22 million with their athletes. UAB coach Trent Dilfer told On3 that his school will not be coming close to that cap figure. No, God, no. And that maybe only a couple of teams in this conference would come somewhat close to that, but we're not even in the stratosphere. Dilfer thinks a salary floor is more important than a salary cap to get everyone playing the same game. Well, that's interesting. I wonder what number they're going to settle in on that salary floor. Very, very interesting. Before I get into the Florida State, we're going to talk about that in the monologue. Let me keep up here. Let me get caught up. Ryan Thomas, the Big Ten fridge told Florida State it can't have cheese on the burger. I tell everybody, you should not have cheese on your burger. You are ruining your hamburger. Your hamburger is not getting to the top of the salary cap. When you put cheese on your burger, you're just in the salary floor business of eating a burger. Thank you, Ryan Thomas, for your generosity. I do appreciate it. Hit the wrong button. Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry, thank you so much for your early peak membership. I do appreciate it. You are hereby knighted cloak and dagger. Patrick, you're able to watch our membership only early peak cloak and dagger episodes. Please go to the YouTube channel when you get a moment. Go watch. We just dropped episode 43 this morning. Bill G, holy smokes. Bill G and Ryan Willie. 5 gifted memberships. Well, I am way behind. I do apologize. Bill G, thank you so much. And for the 5 that were gifted a membership by Bill G, please say thank you to Bill G for his incredible generosity. Bill G and those 5 new ones, 5 new members, you are all officially knighted cloak and dagger. Thank you so much, Bill G. I do appreciate it. Wow. And the evil badger, Ryan Willie. You know what? I don't usually stand up for Badgers. But a lot of people are taking a shot at the Badgers this year. I think they're going to finish 8-4. I think it's going to be a successful second year for Luke Fickell. I have them finishing just ahead of Minnesota when it comes to I have 5 teams finishing 8-4, tiebreakers. But people are talking about Wisconsin's tough schedule. It's true. They have a more difficult schedule than Iowa. That's why I've got Iowa finishing ahead of Wisconsin. But I think Wisconsin's going to, I think they're going to have at the end of the year, I think most Badger fans and people nationally are going to say Luke Fickell had the year he needed to have. I don't think they can compete in the top 6 in the conference. I'm a little worried about the quarterback position. I'm very sketchy on. But Luke Fickell is bringing in better talent than his predecessor, I believe. I think Wisconsin's going to have a successful year. And I'm not saying that because Ryan was generous enough. I tell Ryan things he doesn't like to hear on every single show. But I do think the Badgers are going to come out okay in 2024. Thank you for the gift 5 memberships, Ryan Willie. I think maybe I still have time to figure out who received those memberships. Immaculate, check it out. Daryl Captain, Tumasta, MBM. All 5 of you, please say thank you to Ryan for his generosity. Ryan, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. All 5, and Ryan, you are once again hereby knighted cloak, dagger. And Jim Reese, thank you for your generosity of a gifted membership. Holy smokes, Mr. Jim Reese. John Famlor, please say thank you to Jim. He just gifted you a membership. And Jim and John, you both are hereby knighted, officially knighted, cloak and dagger. So all of you, please go check out episode 43. But after this live show is over, okay, we're going to get back to Florida State. It's a Big Ten media days. We've been talking about Big Ten. But I want to circle back in Florida State. Because for a long time here at Peek Around the Corner, we've been giving you the truth. It's been tough to listen to. But there is some good news that I cannot really, that I'm not really to put out there quite yet. But Florida State knows exactly what the PATC community knows. Of course they do. They knew it before I knew it, obviously. It took me a long time to figure out what was going on. And on June 15th, we were fortunate to tell you that Tony Petitti, Greg Sankey left the Holy Smokes Theater. They'd rather have a pause this year. They don't want nothing to happen. And Florida State is neither the Big Ten or the SEC's number one target. We've been through that over and over and over again. We gave the reasons why through the month of June, through the early parts of July. But Florida State has received the message. And I'm sure they received it long ago. But now we've got word of peek around the corner. They understand it. And they're doing the right things. They're going to do everything they can. A Marshall Plan in the state of Florida. The government of Florida, the state of Florida, the university, they're going to pull everything they can to reach that next level of being a research, of an impactful, valuable research university that the Big Ten would want and the SEC would want. But more in line, the Big Ten has a little bit more demands on all that. Here is, and I've talked about this before. Talked about relationships, how important they are. I cannot, you guys know how this works. I'm able to go so far on a live show. And then in the days and weeks ahead, I'm able to push the envelope further and further and further. So, this is not going to seem like it's much information at all. Okay? I'm going to give this information and everyone's going to be disappointed. Everybody. Everybody's going to be disappointed. Even the Florida State fans. Even though I'm giving good news, you're still going to be disappointed. The president. Wow, Daniel, I did not see that. I apologize. I don't even know when you put that up. I'm looking at the camera. Thank you, Mr. Daniel Montcastle, for your incredible generosity. And more importantly, your friendship over a decade. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for yourself and your wife. Thank you, Mr. Hoosier. Holy smokes. I don't know why it's cut off on my screen there. But Daniel Montcastle just put an incredible, well, I guess you can see the amount there. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Montcastle. Man, my goodness. Helping us keep the lights on here. I do appreciate it. Thank you, sir. I'm very touched. Now, what was I saying before Daniel blew me out of the water there? I don't remember what I was saying. Florida State. Florida State, thank you. I have Notre Dame joining the Big Ten. It's not imminent. That the last update I gave you guys on that, it's not imminent. It's not even. Notre Dame isn't going to be the first to do anything. So Florida State's going to have to, Clemson's going to have to get out of the ACC, have some sort of settlement years down the road, whatever it takes, and then the whole Notre Dame to the Big Ten. So that's not, I can't possibly tell you the answer, Mr. Austin. The good news on Florida State. Okay. Remember when we talked about Ohio State acquiescing to the expansion of Oregon and Washington? Ohio State knew, everybody knew that the Big Ten was, everybody in the Big Ten knew that the Big Ten was going to expand west again before they went east. They were going to go after Washington and Oregon when Kevin Warren left his office because Fox Sports wouldn't work with them anymore on expansion. The Big Ten presidents were done with Kevin Warren. Kevin Warren had to leave office, and the Big 12 was going to have to break into the Pac-12 two times for the Big Ten to go down that road. But if it wasn't going to happen within those 5 months, the Big Ten was going to expand with Oregon and Washington 5 years afterwards. But they were able to get it done within the 5-month period. Ohio State acquiesced. They said, fine. They don't have a veto pen. No Big Ten school does. Obviously, Ohio State and Michigan are the most important schools in the Big Ten. There is some factions within the Big Ten. Michigan and Wisconsin's one of them. Ohio State's they're a whole nother faction unto themselves. So in return, internally, politically in the Big Ten, and you have to understand this. Remember, you've got to understand the lay of the land to kind of know, because not everything's decided on a spreadsheet. It's not. Ohio State was going to have a much larger influence historically, much larger influence on the next wave of expansion for the Big Ten. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, Ohio State's voice is going to be heard, and the Big Ten is going to follow their lead. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, of course, the Buckeyes are the most powerful team in the conference. But that's not how it works in the Big Ten. But that's how it's going to work next wave, this wave. We've talked about this before. Ladies and gentlemen. And I got to talk about it again today. Because something has happened. The president of Ohio State is President Carter. He came from Nebraska. We have had live shows talking about Nebraska. We've had live shows talking about how internally they have said, boy, we really need to stay up with the other Big Ten schools, or we're not going to be looked upon as a peer any longer, and that could threaten our membership in the Big Ten. I happen to believe they don't have anything to worry about, or not much to worry about. But inside the Big Ten, inside Nebraska, they are worried about it. We've done at least 3 live shows on it because Sammy Kuhn talked about it, Sipple's talked about it, the interim president has talked about it. There has been reports out in the open, in articles out of Lincoln, Nebraska, of then President Carter writing emails to everybody in the state of Nebraska saying, we've got to get our house in order or we are in danger of not being a Big Ten school in the future. I'm paraphrasing some of that, but that was his message. We've done live shows on it. So now that President Carter is now the president of Ohio State. He was unsuccessful. Year after year after year of trying to change the dynamics in the state of Nebraska, trying to change the politics, trying to change the structure, trying to get Campus Kearney, Campus Omaha, all involved in Campus Lincoln, all of it involved to help Nebraska out when it comes to research, medical, research institutions, and everything else under the umbrella. He was not successful, no matter what he did. Now, Nebraska's trying to do it all over again. They're trying to marshal all their forces in the state of Nebraska to make sure that Nebraska can get out of this funk that they are in as an institution. The fear of Nebraska is not so much today, not so much next week, not even 3 years from now. The fear of Nebraska is that in 15 years, 2040, Nebraska will no longer appear to be a peer of the Big Ten schools. That's their fear. That is their fear. That it's going to come to a point where it's like, we're not a Big Ten university anymore. They don't want that. Nebraska has time. I'm sure they're going to find some solutions. But Carter has been pounding the table. Not only President Carter, but former athletic director Trev Alberts have been pounding the table saying we need to do better. Okay. So why are we talking about Nebraska when I said Florida State got some good news? Carter is the president of Ohio State. And Ohio State's going to have a larger voice than historically when it comes to the next wave of realignment. And Ohio State, the University of Ohio State, does not want to bring in an institution in the Big Ten in which they have a ceiling as low on them as Nebraska. I'm not taking a shot at Nebraska. Nebraska is a valued Big Ten university. Their value athletic program is huge. It's in the top half. Huge fan base, great fan base, spends money on Nebraska. They love the programs. This is not a shot at Nebraska. I'm telling you from the perspective of the Big Ten presidents. The Big Ten presidents who actually do the voting do not want another Nebraska into the conference. Do you guys understand that? Nebraska does research. Nebraska has successful research. They do $300 million. Florida State does $400 million. But there is, in the eyes of the research world, and we showed you the global rankings of Nebraska, there is this ceiling on Nebraska. While the other Big Ten universities keep marching along, and the gap between Nebraska and the other Big Ten universities keep growing. The gap between Nebraska and Michigan State keeps growing. The gap between Nebraska and Iowa keeps growing. And if Nebraska can't structurally change something in their state, the gap is only going to grow. They're not going to bring a university in which the university structurally outside the state can't grow more as a research university. July 22nd, Florida State Board of Trustees. They talked about marshaling resources, getting the state government more involved. They received the message. Florida State knows who they have to convince. Florida State knows who they have to convince. And they've got time. They've got time. Because whenever Florida State, whenever they're going to have first party talks with the Big Ten, whenever they're going to go at the table, real talks, Florida State wants the ability to show a long-term commitment for the university to become a bigger research university. They want to be able to show the Big Ten the commitments, and they want to show it at a state level. That's what Florida State is doing. They received the message. There is some information that I cannot get into right now. But this, and people are going to say this is not good news. This is nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing. All I'm saying is you can take this however you want it, because people did not agree with me over the last 6 weeks when I said Florida State they're not the number one targets. The Big Ten presidents, they would need help with I shouldn't say nobody took me seriously. Most of the PATC community did. But I'm telling you, Florida State gets it. So as long as they get it, and they do, I have really good reasons to believe that they do. As long as Florida State gets it, they've got a shot. They've got a shot to become a Big Ten member a couple years down the road. They've got a shot. The door is not closed. And we've been saying that from the beginning. They're not the number one targets. They're going to have pieces fall correctly. They're not the number one targets. They build relationships. They're not on the best terms with a couple of the number one targets of the Big Ten. But they get it. They understand it. They get it. They're going to work on cementing some sort of support through the state government. We know of one particular measure that is there's gonna be an attempt to adopt a certain measure. So we're gonna look. We've got information coming into us all the time. I thought it was correct to present it to you guys today, even though I can't push the envelope all the way open. But as you know, this show, we start out, sometimes we lower the boom on you guys right away when we can. Sometimes we have to go at these stories starting small and building up all the way through. So Florida State gets it. That's the good news. That is the good news. They get it. They absolutely get it. And the dream is not dead. As my wife would say. If Maria is still in the chat room, we always say to each other, dream dead, dream alive. When something good happens, we say dream is alive. And then when we went shopping to find a swimsuit for the fat guy in Minnesota, myself. And, we're checking the racks, and either the size of the swimsuit or the color of the swimsuit or the style of the swimsuit or, it just wasn't happening for yours truly. So we kept saying, dreams dead, dreams dead, dreams dead. And then we found the perfect swimsuit for the fat guy in Minnesota. And the wife said, dream is alive. That's to give you an example. Dream is alive. Florida State. It's going to be a story, an ongoing story here going through the next year because it just is. We're not even at the middle of this adventure. We're not even at the middle of this story yet. Anyways, so I had to talk about that. Big Ten Media Days. We went through the article from Scott Docterman. Ohio State and Oregon. They're the number 1 and 2. A clear gap between themselves and Penn State and the 3-time defending, reigning, undisputed Big Ten champion, Michigan Wolverines. The national champions, Michigan Wolverines, sitting there at 3 and 4. Then USC and Iowa, 5 and 6. Iowa 5, USC 6. What do you think, guys? What do you think? Wow, 18 teams. It hit me today. It absolutely hit me like a thunderbolt. 18 teams. That means my Minnesota Golden Gophers could finish in 18th place. Mick Stevens, Gold Frogs, TCU. I like Hoover. I got to tell you, Josh Hoover, if he can start out, if Josh Hoover can start out the 2025 season, 2024 season, like he ended the 2023 season, TCU could surprise some people. Mick Stevens, thank you so much for the generosity. Ryan Willie. So, Greg, if Bucky finishes higher than Goldie, are you conceding the axe? No comment. I'm not conceding anything, Ryan. I'm not conceding anything. However, I do have a 5-way tie. I got 5 Big Ten teams going 8 and 4. Well, no, they don't go all 8 and 4. But I'd have to look at my notes. They all have the same conference record. And Wisconsin, throughout the tie-breaking procedures here, peek around the corner, I've got Wisconsin finishing ahead of Minnesota. But I got Iowa finishing ahead of Wisconsin. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate your generosity. We went through the salary floor from the AAC, Big Ten Media Days. Let's get to your phone calls. Let me open up the lines. The lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Let it rip. Talk about anything. Anything that you heard from a coach, Big Ten Media Days or ACC Media Days. It's going on today. We've got more news on the ACC. More news. Stanford coach Troy Taylor also confirms that Stanford will travel Thursday for Saturday games out east. They're also going to have a larger plane. So they're going to start Thursday. They're going to travel on Thursday for those Saturday games out playing the ACC on the East Coast. The team will return home for class for the 8-day span at Syracuse and Clemson. We've never done that before. There's a lot of things going on that have never been done before in the 2024
Call
season.
from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, you are on the line. The floor is yours.
You know I had to call in on this one, Greg.
All right.
So I'm thinking...
Did I take a
Nebraska,
shot at Iowa? I don't even remember.
You can, well, a little bit.
Okay.
But my personal thought on Iowa is that they're actually number 4. And it isn't because I think they're better than Michigan. I think they have a much easier schedule.
Yeah.
So, if someone wants to rank them as in, like, which is the better team, okay, cool, Michigan. If they want to rank it as to where they're actually going to finish in the season, I would put Iowa over Michigan. But that's here nor there. We're moving past that. I was actually thinking a little bit about Nebraska, Florida State, and the whole situation and how one might affect the other. And maybe for some of your Florida State viewers may not understand why now all of a sudden you're going positive on Florida State, maybe to give them an idea of why. Because when Nebraska was added, they knew Nebraska was going to lose their AAU status, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Michigan and Wisconsin, they were in on that. So what they were supposed to still do is like, okay, we'll bring you in before it happens. You come in. They were supposed to be good in football. They were supposed to give the West balance to the East. And they failed. They didn't pull their end of the bargain. And then the problem there is that the main campus in Lincoln and the medical campus, the two administrations don't seem to get along, don't seem to work together very well. So you can't even really look at them as like, if you're trying to work out some type of research cooperation with them, you're having to deal with two different groups instead of one. So in all aspects, sorry to Nebraska fans, kind of not sorry, but you have not fulfilled the side of the bargain. And where that comes into Florida State is it's kind of the same situation right now. Not the same, but similar. And that while it looks good, looks like Florida State's doing everything they need to do, and they do have some serious advantages, then you understand, like, there's going to be a lot of options for the Big Ten here in the future. And for Florida State to be that option, they kind of have to show that they're not going to be Nebraska.
Yeah.
And that's why when I called in the other day and I pointed out what was actually in that meeting of how important that was, because they're reaching out to the right people. They're not causing a scene. They're not, I know FSU fans want to see stuff. They want to know. They want to have something geared towards them, but that's probably not actually what's best for Florida State right now. And I think they were doing what's best for Florida State. When you actually have the president come to the board meeting and speak on things that the Big Ten actually cares about, to me, it was pretty obvious. I mean, how often does the president do that? Come in and talk about their research agenda and everything they're working on that, and new investments that they're making on campus and and this is the day before Big Ten Media Day start, when all the Big Ten folks are gathering together to talk. I mean, coincidence? Maybe, but not likely, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was meant to kind of have that put out there as a talking point. Like, look, this is what we're doing. We're sorry once again, Nebraska, but we're not Nebraska. This is what we're doing. So I've always kind of thought, even though I know you were cooling on them, and probably with good reason from what you're hearing, I've always felt like they're still there as a potential. But would you agree that they're more of a potential in terms of, hate to say, but if something else doesn't happen, like we're talking Notre Dame and North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
If Notre Dame decides to stay ACC with with a private type of a conference, that would increase the chances of a Florida State?
I would probably, yes. But again, yeah, it would. I would guess it would.
Yeah.
But Florida, I mean, there's going to need to be There are things that that I've been told here in the last 48 hours that I'm not able to push the envelope yet. But
gotcha.
Florida State, they got a lot of work ahead of them. They're going to have to convince, but they're obviously, and it not just has to do with what they said in the Board of Trustees meeting. There's something that they're working on that I've been told, and so Florida State they're not being misguided. Richard McCullough, the president, Mike Alford, they know where they sit, and Brett McMurphy told the truth. Jason Shearer told the truth. Florida State's working on a backup plan. PATC told the truth. But again, I've never closed the door on Florida State getting in the Big Ten. In the last 48 hours have been a good 48 hours. And Florida State, but this isn't something that you resolved in a month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. But if Florida State can get something, if they can get something, I don't know what the right word is. Florida State is working on their portfolio. That's the best way I can put it. To show the Big Ten when the time comes to say, hey, we are committed to all these things for the next 20 to 50 years. That's what Florida State's working on. They're working on their portfolio.
Yeah, and there's a lot of potential pathways, theories, scenarios that could still play out. My personal thought is right now, I don't think the Big Ten really wants to expand, just like they didn't really want to expand with Oregon and Washington at the time, but situations kind of pushed it. Like bringing in too many schools at once really throws off the internal power balance, the voting blocks, it may not sound reasonable to everyone else, but that's where the power is. That's who's going to be with who and vote on what. Because it's not just about sports; it's about everything, all their other business. And so, if you start bringing in all these new schools coming in, there's a good chance that they, align with each other. So, when people wonder, well, why would the Big Ten be slow to not want to expand? Well, that's the main reason. So if something does present itself like Notre Dame saying, okay, the situation now with the new governance, we need to get in, and there's a situation with the ACC, we're not going to be able to build this, it's not working out for whatever reason, they might only be comfortable with going to 20. And Florida State fans may need to realize you might not get in then at that point. You might need the Big Ten at some point to say, okay, we can go to 24. And that's why I do think that Florida State might look at like a secondary plan, because if Notre Dame decides to go in full with the Big Ten over whatever's going on with the ACC and ESPN, that will affect the ACC deal. That in itself might cause a renegotiation if that's not already happening right now, and especially if Stanford comes with them or some other school, and so that might change the power balance. Right now ACC is saying we make more in the Big 12, and that's fine, granted. But if that was to change, and FSU would know that better than we would, of what the possibilities of that is, they might need a backup plan, and that backup plan, like you're saying, might be the Big 12. So just for the folks to kind of keep that in mind, I think Notre Dame looks at the Big Ten as a backup plan, but they're so much that the Big Ten wants, they're willing to wait.
Yeah.
So Florida State fans need to realize this is the conference you're trying to get into. This is what they've been trying to work on for a long time. And as long as that possibility is there, they're going to continue to work in that direction until it's not possible anymore, until they know for sure. And so it's tough, but hey, if it's worth it to you and you think it's good for the conference and good for the school and good for yourselves, then probably just need to have a little patience, because I've never thought that Florida State was not being looked at but I don't think that they were ever the number one darling. That it's more like Florida State brings so much value to the networks that they can help the conference then bring in a school that maybe they wouldn't have brought in, couldn't have got in. Like a Florida State Notre Dame combo, I think that's a 0% chance of that happening. What do you think?
What combo?
A Notre Dame Florida State. They play the same role. That's the one that brings the value to the networks that allows another school. Like that's why you say Stanford with Notre Dame. I would say a Georgia Tech with Florida State. But if you bring Notre Dame and Florida State in together, good luck trying to get the networks to talk to you about 21 through 24. Because who's carrying the value for those expansions? They already got Notre Dame and Florida State in. Why would they make a deal? So that's my thought on that. Is they might see something happen that they're not part of, at the start, but it doesn't mean that they're out. It's just I don't see them with Notre Dame. So anyways, that's all on that. I'm really appreciative that you brought that out and you looked at the piece that document put out. Kind of letting folks know, hey, look, there's still a lot of moving parts in this, and Florida State still very much has a shot.
Yep. All right, sir. Appreciate the phone call. Immaculate.
Absolutely,
Big
man.
Ten Media Days. Go Gophers. That's all I got to say.
Go Hawk.
All right. Let's see here. If Florida State is not the Big Ten and the SEC's top target, then Utah surely isn't on their radar. Well, you can be on a radar, but not be the top, right? Florida State is on the Big Ten's radar. It's just not the top target, but it's on their radar. And Utah is a school that could. One of the big things that is going for Utah, and we've talked about this before, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, one of the good things that Utah has is a very, 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 very good relationship with USC. We've talked about that here at Peek Around the Corner. So that is something that, Utah has they've been working on the whole relationship thing for a long time, and they are in good with USC. So that is something just to keep in the back of your mind 5 years from now. Bo Weevil, go Clemson. Clemson and Georgia. 13.5 is the line. It's going to be a very interesting game. Christopher Shannon, does the Big Ten need more Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, Illinois, Nebraska? Well, they don't, because those schools are already in the Big Ten. 3 of those schools were original Big Ten members, 1896. There's not really any more schools in the Midwest that, except for Notre Dame, of course. Kings Plain, Florida State's president is often at the Board of Trustees meeting. Again, Nebraska, the football program it's not what, it has not performed the way anybody thought, but Nebraska fans still show up. They're still watching games. The value still there's still a brand there. But it's the institution itself that The Big Ten presidents did not know that there was going to be this hard level institutional cap on the school. And they've learned over the last decade is, wow, Nebraska has a lot of things going against them to be able to grow the university. And there is probably some worry about other possible expansion candidates. And Florida State's going to do all they can to disprove that. Right? Florida State is going to try to prove to the Big Ten, hey, if we're a Big Ten member, if we become a Big Ten member, 10 years after we get into the Big Ten, we're going to be a much bigger research university than the day we joined the Big Ten. This is what Florida State has to convince Ohio State and the Big Ten presidents and anybody else that joins the Big Ten. Same with Miami. Of course, they're AAU. They're in a better spot when it comes to that certain part with the relationship with the Big Ten presidents. But that would be the same for anybody else. But Florida State, they know, and they're going to have time here. I mean, there's nothing happening this month, this year, the Big Ten and the SEC, as we've been telling you since June 15th. June 15th, we told you that Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey left the Holy Smokes Theater. They walked out of the Holy Smokes Theater. They want to take a step. They don't even want anything to happen this year. Remember that. And that was the time when everybody was getting hot and heavy about Florida State could announce that they're leaving the conference. Remember, everything was hot and heavy. And suddenly, here at Peek Around the Corner, we said, whoa, slow down. You move too fast. Big Ten doesn't even want it to happen. They want to see what their 18-member, what it looks like during the regular season, going into the playoffs. Remember, we talked about this. And at the time, everybody dragged me through the coals. But now people understand, yes, Peek Around the Corner, we weren't absolutely drunk. We were telling the truth. They want to slow it down here. They want to figure out what they got to figure out. The Big Ten and the SEC want to figure out if they need to expand the college football playoffs. Nobody knows jack right now. It's going to be an exciting season. Everyone's going to figure out what's going on. So Florida State has time. Clemson has time. North Carolina, maybe they can prepare the Board of Governors. Look. If Pickens County goes pear-shaped for the ACC, if Pickens County, if Judge Gravely comes out someday and says, whoa, Clemson has their media rights the day they leave the conference, and then, of course, the ACC will appeal that. But what if that puts leverage back in favor of Florida State and Clemson? What if they get a deal for $200 million? They're out of the conference. This gives North Carolina more time to prep the land with the Board of Governors, the ones who have the power in the state of North Carolina. Miami, they can prep now. Everybody's got more time. They just do. Ladies and gentlemen, they just do. There is no advantage for Florida State or Clemson to file a notice of withdrawal before August 15th. It doesn't help them at all. They're going to keep grinding in the courts. Clemson is going to keep grinding to improve their university. So when they get in front of the SEC and the Big Ten, Florida State's going to do the exact same thing. And in the last 48 hours, we've been given a heads up on something. And that's going to come out. It is going to come out in public. And we're going to talk about it at that point. Peek Around the Corner. I'm giving you a peek. The last 48 hours, Florida State knows. And they've known for quite a while They've known this. They know. They're not stupid. Florida State knows that they got to get certain votes. They got to work on this. They don't want to burn the bridge with the SEC. Brett McMurphy told you all the truth, by the way. Peek Around the Corner told you the truth for 6 weeks prior to that report. Jason Shearer told you the truth. Florida State's working on a backup plan. They are. Everything has been, none of this has been misinformation. The only misinformation out there is a deal's been done, academics don't matter, and they're all coming from the same fountain of misinformation that's been coming out of that stupid fountain for the last decade. But all this reporting has been true. Ross Dellinger, Pete Thamel has said, yeah, I think Florida State's going to be out of the ACC in a couple of years. That's what he believes based on what he, Ross Dellinger, Brett McMurphy, they're all kind of, North Carolina probably going to be in the SEC. Probably not a done deal, but that's the chatter behind the curtains. They know that North Carolina is the SEC's number one target. Maybe Florida State goes with North Carolina. Maybe Florida State can find this pathway to the Big Ten. There is a lot not known. But there is some things that are known. There is no done deal. There is no done deal. No doors are closed. Petiti and Sankey, they're going to keep their door. They're just going to. Boy, they really want to see how this year plays out. They want to see how the tiebreakers plays out. There is so much going on, guys. NCAA house settlement, the governance, Johnson versus NCAA. Are students going to be employees? And on and on and on and on and on and on. Daniel, Florida State should rename the school to the Florida State University. Now, I don't know if that would get Ohio State on their side or not. I don't know. That might be a risky move. And then earlier today, thank you, Joe Z. Wow. Thank you, Greg, for shooting it straight. Since December 26, 2022, the naysayers will take their L soon enough. Fight on. Thank you, Joe Z. I do appreciate it. December 22nd, 2022. Yeah, that was a big day. Florida State, they were going to make some sort of comment, public comment 2 months from then, and sure enough, Mike Alford said something on February 24th saying, hey, something's got to change in the ACC. Thank you, Joe Z, for becoming a member of this channel. 8 months. Holy smokes. Holy smokes, Joe. Joe, you are either on to something or you're on something. But either way, you are hereby knighted cloak and dagger once again. Thank you, Joe. I do appreciate your generosity.
Call from
Big Ten brother.
Big Ten brother is on the line. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, what's going on? Hey, this is interesting, that letter that you brought up, because I don't know if you remember a couple weeks ago, I had my brother call. He played with a guy who's now an athletic director in the Big Ten. They were on the same team in the Big Ten. And he called and I said, hey, call me and find out obviously he's not going to know everything, but see what he does know. And he said, it was funny because this letter said the same thing. He said the Big Ten is balanced, and he told him they do look at the secondary sports. They just don't blow up like, oh, we don't care about wrestling and hockey and that. Oh, we don't. And that's funny because that was in the letter. Like, yes, we know football is the main character here, but this is something we take into consideration. Yeah. And what was interesting about that was, and I don't know if my brother did, this don't sound right, but he told me, he goes, he said the States only got 16 non-revenue sports. I said, that can't be right. He goes, well, I mean, they don't have hockey, they don't have wrestling, they don't have this, they don't have that. I go, 16, do you know how many non-revenue sports they have?
What school?
Florida State.
I do not know.
Yeah, because that seemed to be one of the things that he discussed with my brother was that, these college presidents, he says they're not, the biggest thing he says the hurdles the culture. Football in the South is king, and that's it. It's king. Wrestling, we don't care. Hockey, we don't care. Bowling, like Nebraska's got the national championship bowling team. They probably don't bowl at Florida State. But that's important to the Big Ten, just like the AAU. You go into Iowa or Penn State and try to get a ticket to go into the wrestling championships. Good luck on that. You won't get near the place. There'll be 20,000 people in there. And that's important to the Big Ten, the Big Ten presidents. They're going to look at the whole picture, Greg. And that's interesting in that letter that they had brought that up. So that's all I wanted to say was that it was funny that me and my brother talked about it. I called you. You were like, yeah, kind of, maybe. I don't know if they're secondary. And then in there it said, and we take this into consideration along with the AAU and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And I know these presidents up here are conservative. They're not. Like down south, football's king. It's king. It's first place, second place, and third place. Up here in the north, in the Big Ten, they enjoy going to the NCAA tournament. If they get 7 or 8 teams into the tournament, they're happy in the Big Ten. They're excited.
Yeah.
They like basketball. They love wrestling. So I think that's part of the thing too. Is like when you look at Florida State, like Florida State's thinking like, well, why would you keep Northwestern and not take us? That's just ridiculous. Well, because Northwestern was one of the founding members. They can go 0-12 in the next 10 years. Yeah. And guess what? They're AAU, and they got 28 non-revenue sports. Northwestern's not going anywhere.
And they do over $1 billion research every year. They're not going
anywhere. Yes. So that's all I wanted to say, Greg. I noticed that, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
buddy.
you, sir. Call again. Whoops.
All right, buddy.
God,
all right.
I'm really screwing up on the sound bar. Jeez. Good call. Great call. Having a large bandwidth of sponsored sports is very important, at least to the Big Ten. To the SEC, not so much. They sponsored less sports overall than the Big Ten. All those were good points. Again, getting back to Florida State, they've got a lot of work ahead of them. But at least we have been shown some information here at Peek Around the Corner that they do get it. They know that they have to work on something, and they are in the midst of it. And they got a lot of work ahead. But no door is closed. Now, again, we still remain on our what we've said over since June 15th, before June 15th. Florida State is not the number one target for the Big Ten and the SEC at this point when they can avail themselves to join a P2 conference. And they might not get in an opening. That's why they're building up a backup plan for the Big 12. But today, some good news. Some good news for those who want Florida State to somehow work their way into the Power 2. Florida State understands. Most of the fan base now understands. Some of them are still kind of just throwing whatever. But anyways, buckle up, brace for impact. Here comes the Seminoles. A lot of school. Look, there's going to be a lot of mediocrity. These larger conferences, these conference schedules, for every win, there's a loss. My, oh my. Yes. Arne Gadd, you bring up a good point. And again, the most interesting aspect for me, is there's going to be more heartbreaks this season. Because the expectations, there's more teams. There are more fan bases going into this season that believe their team should make the playoffs than ever before because of the expanded playoffs. That means there are going to be more hearts broken. That second loss of the season is going to break more hearts than ever before. The third loss of the season, which may take your team totally out, that loss is going to hurt way more than the third loss of any season prior. There are going to be hearts broken. On the other end, on the other side of that is, there's going to be celebrations on 12 campuses when they bring out the seedings. And of course, the champions are going to know that they've made it and everything. First round buys. There's going to be celebrations. People are going to be traveling to the playoff games. Most of the playoff games, if not all the playoff games, are going to be on campus site football stadiums. Some of them maybe get moved. It's going to be so much fun. So much fun. I can't believe it. And it's right around the corner. August 24th, the Seminoles and the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. August 24th, it's July 12th. We're 30 days away, for goodness sake. 30 days away. Thirty days away. 30 days away. Thank you, Expedition Greg, for sending me this. By the way, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel and then have your notifications open up, because we could come on live again tonight. We go where the story goes. Breaking news. A few times a month we have 2 live shows during the day because it's needed. So subscribe to our channel and open up those notifications, and please smash the like button if you like our content. Ross Dellinger spoke to Rose Bowl Management Committee Chair Laura Farber at the Big Ten Media Days. The Rose Bowl has proposed to College Football Playoff that it keep its time and date 5 p.m. Eastern Time, January 1st in future playoffs. It could mean being a permanent quarterfinal game. We're optimistic, she told Yahoo Sports. I've got a question. If the Rose Bowl, if they do become a permanent quarterfinal game and that time and day is set, do you think the Rose Bowl will be the permanent quarterfinal game that has the number 1 seed going to that game? Or that's not going to matter. It's just going to be rotation. Is it going to be an automatic? Is that going to be where the 4th seed team goes to? So 4th versus a probable 5th seed game. Should be a rotation. Great for Trojans, this top-seeded Big Ten school. Rose Bowl should just be the Big Ten title game. I thought that was going to happen, but it's not. I speculated that I thought maybe that was going to happen, but nope. The Rose Bowl is going to be part of the playoffs. All right, so we're going to close it up for this live show. We've been on the air for an hour and 50 minutes. It is Tuesday, July 23rd. I want to thank everybody who's joined us. Big Ten Media Days, 18 teams. 18 teams in this large conference. It is very difficult to manage 18 different programs, all with different interests. Holy smokes. Looking at those football standings, it is, well, from a Minnesota Golden Gopher perspective, it is daunting. It is intimidating. Holy smokes. I want to thank Ricky, Ryan Thomas, Patrick Henry, Bill G., Ryan Willie, Jim Reese, Mick Stevens, Daniel Gorby, Expedition Greg, Joe Z, and of course Daniel Montcastle for his incredible generosity. Thank you all for your generosity, helping us keep the lights on so we can do this live show almost every single day of the year. I do appreciate it. The great comments in the comments section, the great phone calls. Thank you so very much. Big Ten Media Days. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I got to do it now before the August camp starts because it's happening for Florida State and Georgia Tech. It's starting now. I've showed you the 12-team seed, the 12 teams that I have in the college football playoffs. Tomorrow, I'm going to make the picks for every single playoff game. And then I'm going to have the PATC prediction for who's going to win the national championship. I've got the 12 teams all set up. 1 through 12. I showed it to you on a live show previous. We're going to go through that again. And then I'm going to go through my predictions. My official predictions for the playoffs. That is happening tomorrow, July 24th. I want to get that done before there's any injury reports, August camp. I want to have it all done, all signed, sealed, and delivered before all the August news starts happening, before all the camp news starts happening. We're going to be following every rumor, every story, every report, quarterback battles going on through the country, all these news items that comes up during the month of August, leading in to the most interesting, diabolical college football season. This is going to be incredible. So buckle up, brace for impact, full of drama. This week is only just begun. Tomorrow's Wednesday, Big Show Wednesday, final predictions for the playoffs. Buckle in, everybody. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.